We're live. I don't know why I do this to myself. It's late. I'm tired. But we're here to read some poetry because I need to read more poetry because I need to be better at poetry. And if I speak it, it will ingrain itself into my subconscious, theoretically, hopefully. That would be nice. But we've got Never by Jorie Graham, which was delightful to read last night. And we read all of part one. So tonight we will read as much of part two as we can get through. Which might be too long for me. Yeah, it's gonna be too long. It's 30 pages of poetry. And I simply do not have the energy or the stamina. But we're here. Ian Katnack is here. My guy, the reason I'm on Substack in the first place. So glad to see you. We're reading Jorie Graham. Yeah, I had a new poem today. I saw your poem, the Desert Orpheus stuff, which I've been wondering where that's been, and I'm glad to see it circling up again in preparation for your book launch. Maybe we'll read some of those live when I get the print copy. But yeah, I have Jorie Graham. She won a Pulitzer at some point. I appreciate that. And I think Jorie Graham's style kind of surprisingly meshes with what I'm trying to do, which is serendipitous. So, this is Evolution by Jorie Graham. How old are you? As old as until now. Under the kelp bed razor clams turning to find purchase. Young things shooting first times and retaining precedence. Razors digging backwards and down. Spurting spittle bits of sea to equalize descent. Do you believe that after you die, some part of you lives on? Do you pray in hope of reward? Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? It bothers me my life did not turn out as I expected. Also, there are people on the beach and wind accepted by water film. Look, acceptance has a shape. And fate, is it accepted by water film? And how we must promise things. Do you pray without hope of reward? Do you pray in hope of reward? What is it has been gone a long time? How long is the slightest chance? Everything in sunlight. Improvising backwards, scratching phrases in a rapid jitter. Where the mind above it begins, ends, tries to get up and move. Towards or away from. You'll feel the so-called music strut hard against the downstruck. Also someone's shadow going to purchase a beverage. Also everything in sunlight trying to become bodied by something else. The whole ocean retreating, laying, microscopic and also slightly larger, fiercely lit, kelp in streaks of action. Long sentences with branch-like off-widths, indicating acceleration brought forth and left off, phrases of gigantic backing off from a previously held shore. Rivulets of sand left visible in raised inscription, whitening where moistened, question-like, algebraic. Regarding the long leave taking, we are ourselves walking to the right. The noon hour is itself always a firstness of something. Also elsewhere, who is hungry? How small are they? How? I step on parts of faces, only parts. A whole face, what is that? From here, it seems hard to make out. Also a very empty thing, like the border of a nation state. Being comes into this idleness. over the interminable logic of manyness, the demand that something exist, bending to look close, spiking up and forth of burrowings, channelings, a turning, a returning on itself where the broad nouns of large clamshells flayed open by gulls lie in punctuating sunlit stillness on top of a thing which but for their stillness and expulsion has no top. The seagulls, hurrying, dragging and retrieving, also pecking in place and dropping and lifting, sometimes stepping backwards in order to drag and loosen. Also the drag of the slant line, down tilted towards ocean, sucking further still of stream of water towards itself. Of course, the future wasn't there before at all. This is all first time and then again first time. I feel reproach. Eyes closed, I touch my face. My hand hovers like the very question of my face, over my face. G says, breathing beside me, that firstness is not, in any case, a characteristic of experience. He speaks of the long chain back to the beginning of the world, as he calls it, and then, at last, to the great no beginning. I feel the no begin. Subsequence hums tinnily all around me, erasing my tracks. Oh, bright morning, this morning. Look, what looks like retreating is not exactly so. Sunlight makes of exactness an issue. No issuing forth of matter because of sunlight, but sun's upsucking also at work, and how it seems to have weight, pushing the originally pillowy kelp beds down, flattening them where they give up water, unthickening their pastures as the tunneling away from the gigantic drying drives the almost imperceptible downwards. First glitter, then more unchangeable shine, slowly being forced into the vast top of the beach-wide beds, drying out and hardening. The beds force light back. Back across what resides inside, white closed in part of gazing out, bothered by the ease of touch, as if one should open out and spill again. Sound in the sun now muted. Is there an inherent good? As the ruffling back roar recedes, is there inherent good in people? Sound becoming particular and pricked, with the syncopations of singularities. Peeps, insects, snaps, where light is in domain. What good is my silence for? What would hold it inside, keeping it free? Sing, says the folding water on stiller water, one running through where the other's breaking. Sing me something, the sound of the low wave breaking. The tuning down where it deposits life matter on the uphill of shore. Also the multiplicity of deepenings and coverings where whiteness rises as a manyness. As the wave breaks over its own breaking, to rip in unison onto its backslide. Of something sing and singing disagree. That was evolution. Very complicated poetry with lots of depth. Almost reminiscent of T.S. Eliot, honestly. Although that is a bold claim. Aaron and Z are with us. Thank you for joining. Lots of ocean themes. I appreciate those. The way she poeticizes movement and motion of creatures and nature is really, really masterful. Goals. Those neck pointing out, full body length and calling outwards over the breaking waves. Those standing in waves and letting them come and go over them. Those gathering head down over some one thing. Those still out there where motion is, primarily a pulsing from underneath. And the forward motion so slight they lay their stillness on its swelling and falling, and let themselves swell, fall. Sometimes the whole flock rising and running just as the last film of darkness rises. leaving behind, also rising and falling in tiny upliftings, almost a mile of white underfeathers, upturned white spines gliding over the wet sand in gusts, being blown down towards the unified inrolling awayness of white, all things turning white through breaking the long red pointing of lowering sun, going down on, but also streaking in towards whoever might be standing at the point of view place from which this watching being risen from as glance along the red, blurring and swaying water path to the singular redness the glance being everywhere risen from everywhere, cawing, mewing cries where a single bird lifts heavily, just at shoreline rip where its wingtips both lap, backwash, feet still in the wave drag of it to coast on top of its own shadow and then down to not landing. Also just under the wave a thickening where sun breaks into two red circles upon the carried frothing, white and roiling, yes, yet unbreakably red, red pushed, slicked, under, each wave, tucked, and, although breaking, always one, as if from the back end of distance red. And that one flowing to here to slap the red it carries in glistened sheets, way up onto the shore and also as if onto my feet. Or onto my feet, then into my eyes, where red turns into sun again. So then it's sun in surf-breaking water, encircling, smearing, mind not, knowing if it's still wave, breaking on, itself small glider, or if it's amidst red turning feathery, or rather over the laciness of foam break, or just what among the line of also smearingly reddening turns floating out now on the feathery back end of foam break. Looking, it is. The wind swallows my words one by one, the words leaping too, over their own, staying, oceanward too, as if being taken away. Into splash, my clutch of words, swaying and stemming from my saying, no echo, no stopping on the temporarily exposed and drying rock out there, to rub or rest where nothing else grows, and truly swift over the sands, as if most afraid of being repeated, preferring to be dissolved into designation. Back-glancing stirrings wedged in between unsaying and forgetting. What an enterprise, spoken out by me as if to still some last place becoming even as I speak, unspeakable. And so punctually, not even burnt by their crossing, through one of the great inwardness of mind, not by the straining to be held, grasped by my meanings. We shall have early fruit this year, one of the shades along the way calls out, and from the beginning, yet further on, words, always face down, listening, falling upon them as if from above, listening greedy, able to put them to death, flinging itself upon them, thumb open and attached so hard to what they carry. The only evidence in them of having been, and yet how they want to see behind themselves, as if there is something back there, always behind these rows I gnaw the open with, feeling them rush a bit and crane to see beneath themselves, and always with such pain, just after emerging, twisting on their stems to see behind, as if there were a sun back there they need, as if it's a betrayal, the single forward-facing reference, dream of admission, resemblance, turning away from the page as if turning to a tryst. The gazing straight up at the reader there, filled with ultimate fatigue. Devoted servants, road signs, footprints, you are not alone. Slowly in the listener the prisoners emerge. Slowly in you, reader, they stand like madmen facing in the wind. Nowhere is there any trace of blood spilled in the service of kings or love, or for the sake of honor, or for some other reason. Mm. I'm just really enjoying and taken by the way she engages with the ocean. So powerful. Dusk shore prayer, the creeping revelation of shoreline, the undershadowed paisleys scripting wave edge down slope, on the barest inclination, sun making of each mile-long wave retreat a golden translucent forward downgoing, golden sentences writ on clearest moving waters, moving their meaninglessness on, not in, the moving of the waters, which feels tugged, the rows of scripting, even though it's a trick, adamant with self-unfolding, wanting the eye to catch and take dominant final hold, feel the thickest rope of water-lipped scripting. To be a producing of a thing that speaks, to whom one does not know, but a true speech, to believe this truly, not in metaphor. To put it in the blank in which one sees, and then into the blank in which one is, to separate I am from I have being from I am apart, and not wanting to be, and never to be, emptied by the wound of meaning, the gash of likeness, the stump interpretation, spelled from the living world, grown sharper by the sighting as the sun goes down until it glimmers in the tiny darkness, and the human will comes to the end, having it go before one's going goes, the summer at one's back, the path barely findable. Yeah, T.S. Eliot. It's littered all throughout this. I'm getting deja vu to the four quartets, in a sense. This is much more modern, but Joseph Coleman is with us. Thank you for stopping by at this unholy hour. The Complex Mechanism of the Break by Jorie Graham. From here, 10 to 14 rows of folding and branching. Up close, the laving and overlappings that pull sideways as well as suck back. Filamentary green trims, where the temporary furthest coming forward is lost. Suctions in 3 or 4 different directions, back from pinnacle point. Encounter of backsuck by the foremost, low breaking up stitching really arrivals, where it seems pebblings of sandbits ruffle up and are ruffled back into the foam of the breakwater browning it. Glassy, meanwhile, the frontmost arrivals, their sheets filling momentarily with sky, with clouds fully formed, in which gulls of sand glide, even as they all are drawn back into the ruffling front thunder, into which direct back motion feeds is fed, over which reel rows of low-flying pelicans. Back motion into which retreat itself feeds, slides, you'd have to say dissolves. Though strangely, nothing of the sea dissolves behind the crystalline green risings of just before furling, then furling between the wild carrot lacings and spume of breakages the eye hardly caught. Lifting the eyes away, one sees in the near, far distance large upwallings, in which sometimes fish calmly ride sideways above one. High above, while close up the sky unfolds, deep here at our feet, the eyes look down to see up, then squinting out to see the see-through slow uprising, holding its school. The mind doesn't want it to break. Unease where the heart pushes out, the mind wants only to keep it coming. Yes, the sun making the hot, the not yet breaking crest. So gold where the pelicans turn as they glide, flapping then gliding. as long as possible without too much dropping. Here and there, trying to stay with the just breaking ridge, turning towards or away from the watching eye, to origami trick, artichoke wing. Sheen, crank, beaks dragging the gold-fringed, gathered garment furl through which the fish themselves drive. Thread, the only momentarily unbreaking line. And how there's always something else. Up close, 4 different brown retreating furls just now, being forced to forward break, re-entering themselves, each tripping over each, as they are also forced into retreat. What is force? My love is forced from me as in retreat. From love. My gaze is forced back into me as it retreats from thought. Sometimes the whole unraveling activity, for just an instant, pools, all its opposing motions suddenly just pattern on these briefly lake-like flats. The shores upslant, unspooling then in only 2 dimensions. Close your eyes. Although it's only when you open them you hear the 7 kinds of sound. Hiss flattenings and poolings out, sand suctions in the flat, the pebbled word like pulling down and rolling up, the small hush of the small first white of line, its lowering, its voice as it proceeds to crash, the crash where the larger one behind it is hit and hits, the one of yet more force behind it now, the singleness, the one loud thunder break, the backmost individual wave, and the lowering and sudden softening of all betweens, of which every few minutes one, out of which the first crash yet again can rise. Also the momentary lull, which now lets in the sound of distance in itself, where your eye might look up further out to where, it seems, nothing but steady forward progress in its perfect time occurs. Onward, onward, tiny patterns which, seen from above, must, it is imagined, perfectly shine. I wonder which ocean she's writing about. I don't know where she's from. I looked at her Wikipedia earlier today because I was curious, and I seem to have forgotten everything about her. She got an MFA from Iowa. That's significant. She has a rule named after her, the Jorie Graham rule, that doesn't allow poetry contest judges to judge their own students because she gave a poetry award to her boyfriend as when she was judging, and then to several Iowa students in the future, which is controversial, I guess. But she says it was all Meredith, so maybe we should believe her. Hmm. Ebb tide. I am a frequency. Current flies through. One has to ride the spine. No peace of mind, of heart, among other frequencies. How often and how hard are answerings. The surf receding leaves successive hemline trims of barely raised, institching sand. Bridal wreath puckerings, glassy, this side, packed smooth, that. Making one's way, one sees the changes, what took place before one looked. Snakeskin of darker sands, in with the light, slightly more raised and wider alligator skins, crab tracks as wild unfocusings, around firm holes. The single tubefish dead, long as a snake, half snout, rolled over and over as the waves pick up, return, return. Less often go away. For a while he is incandescent. White, then blue, deep green, then white again until he's left, half turned, eyes sandy till one wave come back. This far as if in air, cleans him off. Greenish with rising, falling, weed debris, shore mist. fingering long streaks of sun, graphed beach length on the scallop-edged lapping retreat. Christmas ornament red shrimp, punctually along the highs of each, upskirting arc, prongs upright. Stiff, swift ticks of sunlight count them out. Who has enough? A little distance back. Two vultures feeding on a pelican. Later, claws and beak float in the brack. Foam bits lace up the edge of the retreat. Something feels like it's not coming back. In the tide pool, sand grains advance along a long, walled avenue. In ranks, at the conjunction of two rocks, algae signaling the entry point, swarming but staying in unison without advancing, waiting for some arrival. The channeling of them quickening the large espousal light, beginning now to touch what had only been underwater story. Until the gleaming flow of particles is finally set down, is stilled, the grains drop down and matte, still in begin to dry, the wandering tribe is gone, the city's gone, the waiting gone. The individual grains are not discernible. I'm squatting so I hear sand sucking water in, gravity glistening. I take a stick and run it through the corridor of wilderness. It fills a bit with water the first time, is self-erased. The second time it does not fill, it leaves a mark where my stick ran. I make another cursive mark. How easily it bends to cursive, snakes toward thought, looking back. I see the birds eating the bird. The other way, my gaze can barely reach the shore break. The little weight of the stick in my hand, the meditation place demands. My frequency, this hand, this sugar stalk, the cane fields in the back of us, at the length of tubefish back there too. And if I write my name, and how the mist rounds the headland toward till the sea is gone. One feels words should be sent us from the source. It is all roar and cry and suck and snap. The pebbles on the pebbles roll. One feels one has in custody what one cannot care for long. Too much is asked. Nothing is coming back the way it was. But one can wait for the next hem, next bride, next oscillation comedy. Done, the birds fly off. I can see through the trees, through the cane groove, palm grove, out far enough into the clearing where the spine of the Pict's clean story shines. Hmm. It's really fascinating that this poetry collection is called Never. Yet she is so focused on individual moments. And I guess that's just good poetry. But she's really pressing into us the importance of the moment, of these kind of portraits. Um, Very abstract portraits, but they're portraits in each poem. Um, Thinking of one little moment. Hmm. Fixed posture. Okay, this next poem is going to be far too long. So I think I'm going to stop it off there. Um, Ending on ebb tide, which thematically makes sense. Um, in other exciting news, I was at the library today. I got some Wisława Szymborska. I don't speak Polish. But I was recommended him by some people here. I really like Polish poetry. And I got Anna Swear, who I've encountered at Shezlon Milosh's recommendation. And she is fantastic. So I think we will read some of her and some Wisława later this week, should I be awake and sentient and alive. All right, thanks for joining, everyone.